Thank you all for coming to my talk. I just need to read the name of the presentation in full. It's like State of Degree, Server-Side Open Source Software for Spatial Data Infrastructures and the Geospatial Web. In my case, I made it a little bit easier. I'm going to explain to you about the current outlook and the current state of Degree. My name is Julian Zilz, and this is the agenda that we're going to talk about today. First, I will present some general information. Then I will go into the block of Degree web services, and following with Degree OGC API. In the end, I will make a small summary, and if I have time, I can answer some questions as well. Okay, first a little plug about my company. Because they sent me here, they made it possible for me to present this. So we have already 20 years of experience in the open source area. We are for consulting, development, support for Degree, and through that we are also maintaining the project. Furthermore, we are also OGC technical member and site member. So we also maintain these team engine sites. I don't know, maybe some of you know this. Quick overview about the project. So Degree is pretty old, and I think a lot of people that worked in this area of the open source geospatial area already had contact with Degree. It was for a time more popular, I would say. So it already has, how many, 22 years now. Since 2010, it's a project under OSGeo. And if you want to read more information, I linked the website. I will publish the slide after this presentation on pre-talks, so you can access this and click different links. Just a comment about the website that's linked there. It's kind of a bit outdated, and we're gonna try to update it soon, but it's not that easy to like meddle with the OSGeo stuff. Okay. Yes, besides being an OSGeo project, Degree is also an OGC reference implementation. So basically, on the right side of the screen, sadly it's not so good visible. We have different certified compliance badges. First for Degree web services and for Degree OGC API as well. So we support the full Inspire stack, meaning view service, WMS, download service, WFS, discovery service. More interesting, of course, for the European people that actually have a lot to do with the Inspire initiative. But yeah, the amount of services that are OGC compliant is really major in comparison to other projects. And we always try to renew the badge basically the moment it would go invalid. Coming to Degree web service now. Right now the current release version is 3.5. Important changes that came with 3.5 are the support for OpenJDK 11 with Tomcat 9. Before it was Java or OpenJDK 8. That's a big difference already. Then we also added support for GeoJSON output in the WFS, support for a higher version of PostgreSQL with the corresponding Postgres extension. We made some under the hood changes as well, optimizing the performance of the WMS and different things that you probably won't notice if you use it the first time or so, but if you're like already used to using it, you get used to it. And on the top right, I have a little, I made like a little statistic that we made in total 100 plus enhancement, 35 plus fixed bugs in comparison to the latest version of Degree 3.4.32, which is discontinued already. Okay, and before I made the slides, and then I realized I didn't put any picture of the Degree web console. Sadly, it's also not so good visible here. But yeah, basically, what's interesting here is, it's really not so good seeable, but back then in Degree 3.4, we had different buttons there, especially the one see layers and send request button. The see layers was basically a little extension. We used open layers to preview services that are configured in deegree, but we removed that feature because we couldn't really maintain it that well. It wasn't working as well, I think. And also the send request button also was not needed anymore, and we want to remove it. Yeah, just so you see how it's basically look like. But the console I will talk a little bit about in the end. Okay, so we also have a Docker image available. The Docker image is always the latest release version. But additionally, we also offer release candidates if we have one, or pre-release. For example, now we have the pre-release of degree 3.6. And it's automatically built through GitHub Actions, yeah. You can see it already has 7,000 pulls, which is quite a lot for us. Next, we come to the degree life cycle, which is interesting because the moment basically degree 3.6 reaches the general availability, the end of life of the 3.5 line will be announced in similar fashion to what we did with 3.4, as you can see with the date range here on the right side. You see that the end of life from 3.4 was 2023, and the release date of 3.5 was also 2023, a little bit earlier. Yes, next I also included this image because it's really interesting to have a support matrix, and we try to maintain these matrices or these tables really good. And here you can see different other software components or software, for example, Tomcat, PostgreSQL, and the different databases, and which versions of these other software components are compatible with a certain degree version that you maybe want to use. And here's also already the version included that I was talking about, the 3.60 pre-2. Feel free to test it. The Docker image is available. It uses Java 17. Exactly. Talking about that, I'm going to show you the plans for degree web service 3.6. So as I said, version 3.6 not shell supports, but it supports Java 17 and Tomcat 10x. We also now have support for JXP3 and Jakarta EE dependencies. So we upgraded that from Java X. We want to change the logging framework basically because right now we are logging a lot of stuff that clutters a bit, I would say, but we are still discussing what exactly we want to do there. Then we also have the topic of offering a skinny degree web service var. Yeah, that's also in the working, and I think that's going to be included, so a more lightweight web app than what we have currently. And include a new Inspire demo workspace. Maybe some users who worked with 3.4 knew that back then we had a workspace with Inspire data, but we removed it because it was outdated. Due to like the upgrade of 3.5, some things changed. And we already have data available for Inspire, and I'm going to talk about this as well because we recently created like a new workshop where we use this data, and hopefully we can provide a new demo workspace that people can use, download, and practice with. Lastly, there's already created a pull request. We updated the documentation with new pictures and removed certain things that were just plain outdated and left in there for years. But as always, contributions are welcome because we are not that many people maintaining the project, so feel free. Recently we had a user, for example, that was coming to the project, tried out degree, and had a lot of questions, and that made us realize, okay, there are some problems that we sometimes have, that the documentation is a bit old, but it's good if people point it out, we can quickly fix it. Okay, next we go to the degree GML tools command line interface. Something really interesting that I use a lot actually, when you use the Docker image, we right now deliver you the CLI with the image, so you can basically run the image, hop on the container, and once you're in the container, you can use this CLI. And the CLI has basically two functionalities. The first tool is the SQL Feature Store Config Creator, which basically takes GML application schemas as input and creates for you a custom degree SQL feature store that you need to configure your service with as a data source basically, and the SQL DDL script, which you can just input into your PostgreSQL database or the database of your choosing. For example, also Oracle is supported. Once you have the setup, you basically now need to put the data into the database. This you can do with the GML loader. The GML loader basically writes the GML file that you have on disk into the SQL feature store, or rather the database. Important to notice there is that it's really good because large file sets are supported. And recently, we also updated a lot of functionalities of this tool because we can always add like parameters that you can use. And for example, if you create the SQL feature store with a certain parameter that you give the tool reference data, the created configuration file is also only applied on the structure of the data that you input, meaning that the configuration will be way smaller and the service will be way more performant, which is really great. And here I have a little example of work I did for the AGP soil. I made like a little cookbook for them with the Inspire Soil theme data set of Berlin. In total were 25,000 features, and I also used the workflow that I just described, create a schema, create a config file, and then load the data into the database using the GML loader. So feel free to check this out. Lastly, I have here the degree workshop that we recently redid. Sadly, you don't see that good. I see way better on my screen all the time. So the workshop is really interesting because there we use Docker Compose, and we try to be really a bit more extensive and explain, okay, what are the different components in the Docker Compose are doing, and how do you get from point A to B in different ways? So I also put like a little SQL dump in there, so if you don't want to use the tools and you don't want to wait that the data is loaded into the database and everything, you can just run it with the SQL dump, and then you have a full functional running degree instance with data already. Good, so much to degree web services. Now the little part about degree OGC API features. Here I have a little slide about the OGC API feature standard itself. I think most of you know. Right now we have different parts. We have part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. And the last two parts are all still in the draft phase. Right now, degree supports part 1 and part 2 as a reference implementation. Part 3 is still in development, was partly implemented. And what's really interesting is, I think, is that we, as the degree project, we support GML. And a lot of other projects, I think, not even one other project supports the GML output. So basically, besides using GeoJSON and the HTML view, you can click on top. I will show you later a picture where you can just click and you download the data as GML, which is really interesting. And in this context, we also found out that QGIS, when you use QGIS with the OGC API and you download the features, it always goes through JSON or GeoJSON. It never takes the GML, so that's maybe an enhancement that QGIS people can do, and I already made a feature request for that. Okay, lastly, we offer some more support for Inspire, and also we recently implemented the support of API design rules of the Netherlands. The current status from the OGC API features is basically that we have the latest release version is 1.3.1 bug fix version. We had a pre-release for a long time, and then recently, like 3-4 months ago, we made our first release with 1.3.0, and it's available on GitHub. We also have a public demo available. It's also additionally, like Degree Web Services, you can use a Docker image to deploy it. Pretty easy. Latest version is shown here. We don't have any release candidate in this Degree instance, for example. But yeah, feel free to use it. Interesting is how Degree OGC API is configured. Basically, if some of you maybe know, Degree works with workspaces. As in the workspaces, there you have the certain configuration files. Depending on your configuration, you also have the data. And we provide an example workspace that you can use to deploy your OGC API instance. But interestingly, you can also use an existing Degree Web Service workspace and extend it by adding one mandatory file for a data set. You then made a new workspace for Degree OGC API by just using your already existing one, which is pretty simple and really nice that you can just take your data that you already have, add one more file, and if you want 2 optional files for the HTML representation and styling, and then you can use the OGC API. Yeah, and more information, I submitted a link here as well on the bottom. Now the question is, can you see the picture? I mean, it's okay. Here is the Degree OGC API HTML view. So basically, in this case, it's a demo from the trees in Hamburg. You see we have a little map preview on the right side. On the top, you see the normal, the build-up, the structure, I would say, how it usually is. We have a landing page as well. And on the top right, you see what I mentioned earlier, that you can download the data as GML, which is really nice and convenient, I would say, instead of downloading it as GeoJSON. Because depending on how much data you want to download, GeoJSON sometimes can be like a little bit unhandly. Yeah, we also have some questions and answers regarding that. Feel free to check it out. Yeah, usually there are a lot of questions that you people have are already answered. Okay, coming to the end now. So the summary is, okay, the newest release version of Degree is, Degree Web Services is Degree 3.5. Comes with a lot of enhancement, especially performance-wise as well. Supports OpenJDK 11 and Tomcat 9. Degree Web Services supports Java 17 and Tomcat 10. And feel free to check this out, please. To Degree OGC API, we have a new release there as well, and the fact that you can use the existing workspaces and turn it into a Degree OGC API workspace is pretty interesting. Just a little plug about the sponsoring. We still have 82 open issues with the label contributions welcome. We need testers, technical writers, software developers for that, and we have 39 issues funding welcome. So there are tickets where people can just sponsor the project. In this context, also interesting because we are kind of planning, if the user base is not using the console that I showed earlier, we want to remove the console and use the Degree REST API. Basically, Degree also has a REST API that's kind of unknown. And use the REST API maybe in an enhanced version and build on top a web UI on top of this API. In similar fashion to, I don't know if you heard the presentation of Geo Health Check. They want to do something similar, and I'm already trying to like get in contact with them. But yeah, maybe if you can give any feedback, feel free to do. Questions, here's my contact. You can scan the QR code for my business cards, basically. If you have any questions, I can always answer. So, any questions? Thank you.